Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel, Echo of Life. Let's start. There exists a particular kind of quiet that can only be felt when you are in your own space. Not the quiet of emptiness, but the quiet of safety. It's that moment when you register the distant hum of the refrigerator, the soft rhythm of a clock, and realize that, for now, no one expects you to be anywhere else. This isn't loneliness, it's peace. Many people misunderstand this. They see someone who prefers staying in and assume they are unsociable, withdrawn, or perhaps even fearful of the outside world. But for some, home is not an escape from life. It is the one place where they can truly breathe. Because out there, amid the constant noise of comparison, pressure, and performance, they can lose themselves. Within their own walls, they find themselves again. Maybe it began when they were younger. The classroom, the bus, the crowded hallways, places brimming with noise and confusion. For some, these environments felt like tests of endurance. You had to speak up to be heard, adapt to be accepted, and smile to seem all right. So, they cultivated an inner world instead, one that was softer, slower, more forgiving. That's how home became more than a location. It became a sanctuary. Psychology suggests that individuals who cherish time at home often possess a high sensitivity to external stimuli. Their brains process sensory input more intensely. Bright lights, loud sounds, too much conversation. It can feel like an overload. So, the quiet of home isn't about avoidance. It's about equilibrium. It's the nervous system saying, "Here, I can finally rest." But let's be honest. It's not only about overstimulation. There is something deeper, almost spiritual, at play. Home is the sole place where we get to remove the mask. The social persona, the version that smiles on cue, knows what to say, when to laugh, how to blend in, finally dissolves when the door closes behind us. And what remains? The raw, unfiltered self. The one that doesn't need to impress anyone. The one that simply exists. It's curious, isn't it? How a person can be surrounded by people all day and still feel unseen. Yet the moment they are home, sitting by a window with a warm drink, they finally feel visible to themselves. That is the quiet magic of solitude. It's not isolation, it's intimacy, but with your own soul. Our culture often romanticizes extroversion. We celebrate those who are constantly busy, constantly out there doing, sharing, performing. We treat silence with suspicion and stillness as laziness. But there is a quiet strength in people who know how to be alone without feeling lonely, because they have learned that fulfillment isn't always found in noise. Sometimes it's found in the pauses. An old saying goes, "If you don't go within, you go without." For those who love staying in, going within isn't evasion, it's alignment. It's how they process emotion, recover from sensory overload, and reconnect with what is real. Consider this: when you are constantly surrounded by people, your sense of self can fragment. You become a slightly different version for each audience. But when you're home, you are the only audience that matters. Of course, there is a delicate balance between solitude and withdrawal. Even the most introverted souls need connection. Yet here's the paradox. People who love staying in often cultivate deeper relationships, not shallower ones, because they don't expend energy on superficial ties. They long for the kind of bond where silence feels comfortable, where you can sit with someone for hours without needing to fill the air with words. It's about presence, not performance. Research on solitude reveals something compelling. Individuals who spend intentional time alone tend to score higher on measures of creativity and emotional intelligence. It's not because they are inherently smarter. It's because they are reflective. They process their feelings instead of being overwhelmed by them. They observe their own thoughts instead of fleeing from them. In that stillness, ideas take shape, clarity emerges, and emotional wounds begin to mend quietly. Think about when you've had your most significant realizations. They likely didn't arrive at a crowded party or in a noisy cafe. They came in the shower late at night, in your room, or during a quiet walk when no one else was around. That is the hidden power of staying in. It gives your mind the silence it needs to speak clearly. Yet here's what's ironic. Many who prefer staying home carry a secret guilt about it. They feel they are missing out, as if life is happening elsewhere and they are failing to keep up. Social media amplifies this. Endless images of gatherings, trips, and smiles can make homebodies feel they're doing something wrong. But the truth is, the highlight reels of others' lives are not the full story. Everyone is seeking peace. And for some, peace simply looks like staying in. There is something profoundly human about needing a place to retreat, to pause, to reset. In ancient times, monks sought mountains or caves for meditation. Today, people find it in bedrooms, reading nooks, or apartments filled with plants and soft light. It's the same impulse, the need to return to stillness after chaos. The home is the modern temple. And here's the science behind it. When you're at home, you are in what researchers call a low-threat environment. Your body produces less cortisol, the stress hormone, because there is no need to defend or perform. That's why your thoughts often feel clearer at home. That's why emotions you've been holding back may surface when you're alone. Your guard drops, and feelings finally rise to the surface. It's healing disguised as quiet. Not everyone understands this. People might say, you need to get out more, or you're wasting your youth. What they don't realize is that staying in doesn't mean doing nothing. Some of the most meaningful growth happens there. Reading, reflecting, journaling, dreaming. These are quiet revolutions happening behind closed doors. Those who love staying in aren't necessarily avoiding the world. They are preparing for it. They are recharging, rebuilding, and when they do step out, they bring calm instead of chaos. There's also psychological comfort in routine. The brain appreciates predictability because it reduces anxiety. When you know where everything is, when the space feels familiar, your mind can relax. For someone who cherishes home, this predictability becomes sacred. It's not monotony, it's emotional regulation. Every object, every small ritual, from lighting a candle to preparing morning coffee, becomes a way of telling the nervous system, you're safe now. Yet in a world obsessed with productivity, that kind of stillness feels rebellious. We're taught that to be valuable, we must always be visible, always doing, always achieving. But those who love staying in quietly challenge that notion. They demonstrate that meaning doesn't always come from motion. Sometimes it comes from stillness, from being rooted enough to notice the rain tapping against the window, from having the time to reflect deeply on who you are becoming. And perhaps that's why homebodies often possess a rich inner world. When you spend enough time in solitude, imagination begins to flourish. You start to see connections others miss. You notice the poetry in ordinary things. The way sunlight hits a wall, the way dust dances in the air, the sound of distant laughter through thin walls. There's beauty there, quiet but undeniable. It's a slower kind of happiness, one that doesn't need to be captured or shared. Some will never understand that kind of contentment. To them, silence feels heavy and solitude feels like a punishment. But for those who love being home, silence is not emptiness. It is music. It is the sound of finally being enough. There's a beautiful paradox within people who love staying in. They are often perceived as detached or distant. Yet the truth is, they often feel life deeply. Every conversation, every noise, every glance leaves an impression. And when the world becomes too loud, their instinct isn't to flee from it, but to protect their own peace. It's not fear of others, it's care for themselves. You can learn much about a person by how they arrange their space. Some homes are filled with light and music, plants stretching toward windows, the air warm and calm. Others prefer soft lighting, cozy blankets, the gentle scent of coffee or candles. Each home becomes a mirror of the person inside, a physical expression of their emotional landscape. The quiet ones cultivate warmth. The dreamers cultivate comfort. The thinkers cultivate order. And within those walls, they create worlds no one else ever sees. Studies on solitude and creativity reveal something profound. Individuals who spend more time alone often report higher levels of originality, empathy, and imagination, because solitude grants them the freedom to listen to their inner voice. Unfiltered, uninterrupted, unjudged. When you're constantly surrounded by others, your thoughts adapt. You begin thinking in a public language, shaped by how you might be perceived. But when you're alone, your thoughts unfold in their native form. And that's where genuine creativity begins. Consider great artists, writers, thinkers, and inventors. Many cherish solitude, not because they disliked company, but because they needed space to think, to dream, to wrestle with ideas. As Virginia Woolf famously noted, "A woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction." But this truth extends to everyone. We need a room of our own, metaphorically or literally, to understand who we are. People who love staying in have learned that the outside world does not define them. They don't need noise to feel alive. They don't require constant validation to know their worth. Because when you spend enough time with yourself, you stop chasing the applause of others. You start building a peace that no one can take away. Still, solitude can be confronting. When distractions fade, thoughts grow louder. Sometimes that's uncomfortable. That's why not everyone can stay in for long. The silence begins to reflect what they've been avoiding. But those who embrace that silence learn something powerful. Peace isn't the absence of thought. It's the acceptance of it. They learn to sit with their emotions, to watch them come and go without running. That is emotional maturity in its purest form. Psychology tells us that comfort with solitude is one of the strongest indicators of self-awareness. People who enjoy their own company tend to have a more stable sense of identity. They are less swayed by peer pressure, less dependent on external approval, and more guided by internal values. Because when you've spent enough time in silence, you can distinguish your own voice from everyone else's. That is how wisdom grows in quiet places. Of course, it's not that people who love staying in never feel lonely. They do. But their loneliness has depth. It's not the ache of emptiness. It's the longing for connection that feels real, not rushed. They would rather be alone than be surrounded by people who make them feel invisible. That's not arrogance. It's discernment. And when they do find the right people, they love deeply, quietly, completely, because they understand the value of energy. They give attention carefully, affection intentionally, and trust slowly. That's why their relationships often endure. They are built on depth, not noise. There's another side to this, one less often discussed. Sometimes people retreat into their homes not because they are peaceful, but because they are weary. Weary of being misunderstood. Weary of the world demanding versions of themselves that don't feel true. For them, home is the one place where they don't have to perform. It's not escapism, it's recovery. Psychologists call this emotional decompression. It's what happens when you've spent too long pretending. When you come home and feel the sudden need to lie down, to do nothing, to simply exist, that's your body finally exhaling. You've been holding your breath all day, managing impressions, regulating emotions, suppressing reactions. The moment you walk through that door, everything you've been holding drops. That's not laziness. It's healing. People who love staying in often live with heightened empathy. They absorb others' moods. They notice tone, body language, subtle shifts in energy that most overlook. It's a gift, but it's also draining. So they retreat to restore themselves. And that retreat allows them to return to the world calmer, kinder, and clearer. The more you examine this, the more you see that preferring home isn't just about taste. It's a personality rhythm. Some people are wired for external stimulation. They thrive on movement, interaction, and dynamic environments. Others are wired for introspection. They thrive on pattern, rhythm, and peace. Neither is superior. They are simply different ways of being human. But because society often praises constant motion, the quieter types can feel something is wrong with them. In truth, they are simply tuned to a different frequency. There's beauty in that. The world needs both. The ones who chase and the ones who reflect, the explorers and the observers, those who create the noise and those who listen for meaning within it. Often, it is the listeners who help the world make sense of itself. They translate chaos into understanding, noise into narrative, distraction into depth. Perhaps that's why so many writers, philosophers, and artists feel most alive when they are home. It's not that they are escaping the world. It's that they are trying to feel it more deeply. They turn solitude into art, stillness into clarity, and quiet into creation. Their homes become extensions of their minds, physical canvases for their thoughts. Every detail carries intention. Every corner holds memory. But even for those who aren't artists, the psychology remains the same. Home is the space where we process life. It's where we sort through emotions we couldn't express outside. It's where we return to ourselves after being too many versions for too long. And that return, that homecoming, is one of our most essential psychological needs. Because no matter how far we travel, everyone needs a safe place to land. A place where they can shed the armor and simply be. For some, that place exists in people. For others, it exists in silence. For walls and a soft light. There is something sacred about those who choose stillness over spectacle. It takes courage to say no to noise, to step back from the endless need to be seen, and to find value in invisibility. Because in that invisibility, something extraordinary happens. Authenticity returns. You begin to live not to impress, but to express. You start to see life not as a competition, but as a conversation. And suddenly, the walls that once felt confining begin to feel like wings. That's the quiet psychology of people who love staying in. They're not escaping life. They're embracing it differently. They're noticing it, feeling it, honoring it at a slower rhythm. They're not running from the world. They're creating a version of it that feels humane again. A version where the heart gets to breathe. And when they do step outside, they bring with them something rare. Calm energy. They don't add to the noise. They carry stillness like a gift. Because once you've found peace in solitude, you stop searching for it in chaos. You stop demanding that others make you feel at home. You carry home inside you. So if you are someone who loves staying in, don't apologize for it. Don't let the world convince you that peace is unproductive or that comfort is complacency. You're not missing out. You're tuning in. You're doing the inner work most people are too busy to notice. And that work, quiet as it seems, shapes everything else. Because when the world feels uncertain, when people are searching for meaning, it's often the quiet ones who have already found it. Not in crowds or noise, but in the gentle rhythm of ordinary days. The warmth of morning light, the softness of evening rain, the sound of your own heartbeat in the stillness of a room that finally feels like yours. That is the beauty of it all. Home isn't just a building. It's a reflection of peace earned, not given. A sanctuary built from patience, presence, and authenticity. It's where you meet yourself again and again, until one day you realize you were never really alone. You were just coming home to yourself. Sometimes people assume that staying in means you've given up on life. Often, it means you've finally stopped running from yourself. There's a strange peace that comes when you no longer feel pressured to chase every invitation, every trend, every weekend plan that promises fun but delivers exhaustion. You begin to realize that joy doesn't always need witnesses, that the best moments sometimes happen in complete silence. The sound of rain against the window, the smell of something baking, the way light moves across the floor in the late afternoon. You start noticing details you used to miss. The way your heartbeat calms when the world outside is distant. The small satisfaction of moving at your own pace. The way your mind opens when it's not constantly competing for space in the noise of others. It's not isolation. It's a reunion with your own thoughts. And yet, even in that peace, there can be an undercurrent of guilt, because we live in a world that glorifies visibility, where being seen feels synonymous with being alive. If you're not posting, if you're not out, if you're not participating in the collective rush, people may assume you're fading away. But perhaps fading from their sight is how you come back into focus for yourself. Maybe quiet living is not about disappearing, but about finally existing without a performance. At home, you learn that solitude isn't the absence of connection. It's the reset button that makes genuine connection possible. You begin to see that not every friendship needs daily updates, not every dream needs an audience, and not every day needs to be productive to be meaningful. There's beauty in the invisible life, in moments no one applauds, in progress only you can feel. And maybe that's the secret. People who love staying in are not running from life. They're walking toward it slowly, intentionally, without the noise. They're rediscovering what it means to simply be, not to impress, not to achieve, but to feel. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is nothing at all. Just sit quietly in your own company and realize, at last, that you are enough. Thank you watching my videos. Please subscribe my channel for more update.